Today's episode is part two in our signature series titled Stop Normalizing Exhaustion. In today's episode, we're confronting a belief many of us have been taught to celebrate: exhaustion as proof of worth. In this episode, we look at real consequences from documented deaths due to overwork to the quieter ways burnout erodes judgment, health, and relationship. We ask a hard question: what are you sacrificing just to be seen as strong?
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa.
Hello, Lou. How are you?
I am doing well, partner. Doing well.
Girl, last week was a doozy, right?
Yeah.
We talked about outsourcing our thinking. And honestly, I've been sitting with that conversation this week.
Really? Yeah.
Because the truth is, when we're exhausted, we don't decide to stop thinking. It
Right.
kind of happens.
Well,
You don't just wake up one day saying, let me hand my brain over to somebody else.
Right.
You get there because you're tired.
Right. And you know what I thought about? Because in the episode, I made a statement like, even if I'm Googling a symptom or something and something pops up from the Mayo Clinic, I automatically, assume it's right and it'll work for me. But even with that, we can't be on autopilot in life, particularly, Teresa, when it comes to our health. And that's what I've thought about since that episode. Where in my life is it critical that I do not outsource my thinking? And the health was the first thing that popped up because we're getting so many conflicting, recommendations for health,
Yeah.
and they are constant. I mean,
Yes.
do this,
Changes.
stop that.
Yeah.
It's like I'm on a roller coaster. I'm just, the hamster in the wheel, just constantly in motion. But you gotta slow down and think for yourself. So yeah. So today we're talking about the environment that makes outsourcing your thinking so very tempting.
And
Exhaustion.
Exhaustion is
it?
it. Yes.
Yeah. So we've turned exhaustion into a personality trait. So let's just be clear. A personality trait is a stable pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving. It's a consistent way of doing things. For example, people, I know you may not believe this, but it's really true. I'm an introvert. That's a personality trait. Now, it could be bad if I allowed that trait to keep me isolated and distant in relationships. However, because I know this about myself, I push myself when I'm in social settings to sort of navigate through those. I work on finding the balance in my life. And finding balance is critical as we try to manage our lives and get stuff done. So we have so much to do every minute, every hour of every day. It's too much.
So much so, Lou, that I'm tired has become a greeting. It's like,
Yeah.
hey,
You know what?
sis.
Yeah.
Hey, sis, how are you?
Yeah.
Girl, I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm
And
hearing
not
that too.
and nobody even pauses anymore. We don't ask why. We just nod like, yeah, same,
Yeah, right.
And burnout has somehow become proof of value. If you're not exhausted, people are looking at you sideways like, must be nice.
Right. But
I,
Teresa, that's so true, isn't it?
it is because I've caught myself doing this too, comparing how tired I am to someone else. It's like a competition. It's
Right.
like, oh, you're tired. Well, guess what? I
Yeah.
worked late last
Yeah,
night. Got up
exactly.
early this morning.
Yeah,
I
went
skipped
to the gym
lunch.
before.
I
Right.
I skipped lunch. I worked out and I answered emails at midnight.
Yeah.
That's not strength, Lou.
No,
That's
no.
survival mode dressed up as success.
Yeah. Teresa, and you know what? You make a good point because somewhere along the way, rest somehow got labeled as being lazy, and
Mm,
suffering got mistaken for strength. The example I remember most when we talk about exhaustion and needing rest was the news surrounding Ariana Huffington, the founder and
mm.
CEO of the Huffington, I think it's the Huffington Post.
Right.
Teresa, do you remember that
I
story?
do remember
In
that.
2007, listeners, Huffington actually collapsed from exhaustion and a lack of sleep. When she fell, she broke her cheekbone and cut her eye. Now, this incident was a major wake up call for her, and it prompted her to reevaluate the prevalent cultural attitude that functioning on minimal sleep was somehow a badge of honor. So she then, as a result of that, began promoting taking naps, and her actions launched a highly publicized sleep revolution and promoted a cultural shift in the workplace. I remember that because when that happened, there were news articles all over about it. I saw interviews with her about it. It was a major thing because she took time out of her day to take a nap.
Hmm.
You know?
So, Lou, what happened to Ariana Huffington was awful, and
Yeah.
thank God she lived to tell the story. But the
Yeah.
truth is, not everybody gets a wake-up call that dramatic and survives it, right?
Say that, sister. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are documented cases where people have literally died from being overworked. And
Yeah.
when I hear that, I think about how many times we've driven home on autopilot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And literally, for me, Lou, because I have a car that will drive me home.
Yeah, I know you got that car that'll drive itself. Yeah.
Can't even remember the last. I can't even. Sometimes, I mean, it happened this week. I walked through the door and I said, I don't remember how
Yeah.
I got here.
Yeah.
Or, we reread the same email 3 times and still miss what it's saying.
That's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates driving drowsy causes thousands of crashes, injuries, and hundreds of deaths every day. Some figures suggest that there are over 6,400 deaths annually from drowsy
Mhm.
driving.
Yeah,
And the
drowsy
scary
driving.
part is most of those people don't think that they are tired.
Yeah, that's right. And Teresa, when you talk about reading the same email over and over, one time in my life when I was going through perimenopause and I was having terrible problems sleeping. And I was in a meeting or somewhere and my hands were shaky when I was holding a book. And that scared me. And
Yeah.
I was like, what in the world? And it was because I was just exhausted and just not getting proper sleep. Those hormones were all out of whack. Sleep deprivation impairs decision making the same way alcohol does. Now, people, we want you to hear that. Sleep deprivation impairs decision making the same way alcohol does. And Teresa, I have to share something about that. I saw a clip the other day on TikTok where this lady said, you know, sober January, I want to tell you, I'm done with drinking and not just this month. And what she shared, she said, I would go to parties or to a social event, and she said I'd have a few drinks. And, I might record myself saying something. And then the next day when I would see it, it would, I'd be sort of surprised at my action. She said, but I just delete it, you know? She said, but I went to a family function and I had a bit too much to drink. She said I was out on the floor and I was twerking and I was having a good time. She said, girl, my hair had, I don't know what it was doing. It was all whacked and looking crazy. She said, and the next day, it was on social media, in the family thing that her cousin posted her or something. It was just family. She said, but when I saw that, that's the last time I had a drink. She
Oh,
said
wow.
because even though it was just to my family, I couldn't just easily delete that or dismiss it. She said, so no, that's not for me because apparently I get a little too loose when I drink too much. But I tell you, chronic stress increases the risk of disease, depression, and autoimmune disorders. Sleep deprivation impairs judgment by dulling the brain's response to new information, increasing impulsivity, which is what happened to the lady that shared her story because she didn't have any problem getting out on the floor twerking, hair loose, and everything else. It sleep deprivation reduces logical thinking, and it makes people more risk prone. And that's absolutely true because people will be quite daring when they drink too much and when they're sleep deprived. And this will lead to mistakes like drowsy drinking, which is similar to drunk driving. You have a problem with completing and understanding complex tasks, and you might be more prone to engage in unethical behavior. So we need to be mindful of that because there are certainly proven examples include accidents from maybe operator fatigue, impaired military commands, and we know how critical that can be. We think about pilots operating these planes, choosing high risk reward options in games, and again, struggling with moral dilemmas due to our compromised state. Think about that. I mean,
Yeah,
if
Lil.
it's similar to alcohol, if you're sleep deprived, that's critical because we know we are not at our best. And things, that sort of sound like a good idea when you've had too much to drink, were you not impaired, they would not be a good idea. They would not even enter your mind to do or say.
Lou, simply put, exhausted people don't think clearly.
Do not.
They react instead of responding. They settle instead of choosing.
So true.
Hmm.
And you know what, Teresa? That brings us back to episode one. Burned out people outsource their thinking because they simply do not have the energy left to do anything else. They just don't have it in them to think for themselves at that point.
So, I think last week you had a quote. I have one this week.
Okay, okay. What's your quote? You just couldn't stand it that I had one. That's the
Right.
way it is on this podcast, folks. I just want you to make a record of it. Go ahead, Teresa.
Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you
Teresa,
and
okay.
Lamont.
I'm not even mad at you. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good one, Teresa.
Because we unplug nothing, not our phones, not our calendars, not our expectations. And then
Right.
we wonder why we feel like we're malfunctioning. We're not broken. We're
That's right.
just overdue for some good old-fashioned sleep and rest.
And recharge. Wow.
Hmm.
I tell you. So if your work is tied to how much you endure, you will never rest. And because of who we are here at Earrings Off, Teresa and I want to say this. Black women are particularly at risk because we do way too much each and every day.
Yeah, and if you never rest, you'll keep handing your life over to survival mode. And survival mode is quite sneaky. It
Yeah.
convinces you that this is just a season, that
Mm-hmm.
you'll slow down
That's right.
after this deadline,
Yeah,
after
yeah,
this crisis,
yeah,
after everyone else is
mm,
okay. But
yeah,
survival mode doesn't ask what you need.
yeah,
It just asks what's next.
yeah,
And especially for Black women, we've
yeah,
been taught to push through, hold it together, be strong, be dependable, don't complain, don't stop.
yeah.
Somewhere along the way, exhaustion became part of the job description.
Hmm. I tell you, we want you to hear that rest is not quitting. Rest is maintenance. You need rest so your body has time to recover and heal. Healing occurs when you sleep.
That's right. That's right. Folks, next week we're talking about what happens when we keep telling ourselves we'll rest later, love later, live later, choose ourselves later. Because later sounds responsible. Later sounds mature.
Mm.
Later sounds like we're being practical, but later is not promised and it's definitely not guaranteed.
Oh, I tell you, Teresa, you preaching today. And we want you to ask yourself, what if later never comes? What you have for sure is right now, this moment, this hour, today. You got this. Episode 3 is called Stop Treating Your Life Like a Draft. Be sure and listen in, and thank you so much for joining us today on Earrings Off.
Take good care.